Yesterday's final episode of the Game of Thrones had a lot of very interesting messages. I'm sure some of you missed it, so let me share those messages with you. So the first thing is set the right expectations. So when you do 8 seasons of great, amazing script writing and amazing excitement and climax, you can't do a final episode like the ones that they did yesterday. So what that means is if you go to an interview and you have a great interview, that's not the end of it. Your great interview needs to translate into a great job, because when you start working and if you don't deliver, you will be shown the door. Just like all the fans now loathing this bad last final episode of the Game of Thrones, which was such a great franchise. Second, when you take up a job, when you sign the contract, you should have already researched everything about the company, the person you're going to work for, and not be completely disappointed once you start the job. What I'm trying to say is when you bend the knee and you say, "You're my queen," you don't stick a dagger to her heart once things go wrong, because it was all there. The mother of dragons was burning innocent people, and he knew it was happening. So he should have done something about it, Jon Snow, rather than put a dagger in her heart. So once you take up a job, after that, for you to leave the company early or prematurely is not a great thing for your CV or your career. Number 3, you should always know that when you join a company, you should choose the right friends. What I mean to say that these are the people, these are your colleagues who will support you and back you up when it matters the most. You can't have a friend like the dragon who sees his queen, his mother, fallen on the ground with a dagger, put in by Jon Snow, and he decides to scream very loudly for 5 seconds, and then he burns the Iron Throne, and Jon Snow is still alive. So you really don't want friends like this dragon that's going to burn a throne, another guy who put the dagger in. Then look at the Whisperer, right? The Whisperer reminds me of people who work in large companies and hide themselves by doing this very decorative work once in a while, and then they prove to themselves that they are actually very strategic for the whole company, never to lose. Well, you're wrong. The Whisperer, if he has something for you to learn, you should know that if your actions are not as loud as your whispers, you'll get fried. You will be fired. You'll be shown the door. Then you should know that Lord Tyrell has a lot for everyone, all of us to learn from, which means that we have to say the right things at the right time and not just talk. What I mean to say is that if you want to stick in a company long enough and sustain yourself, you should know when to talk and what to say. So Lord Tyrell said all the right things to save his skin. He talked Jon Snow into killing the queen without even indicating that he needs to do that. He convinced Worm and everybody else that they need to choose a king who can decide his fate, because he knew a new king would never sentence him to death. So you need to be like Lord Tyrell, always very careful of what you say and the timing of when to say it. Now, if you had a great career, an amazing career, and now you're doing a new job, right? So if this new job you do not deliver, then you are pretty much like Jaime Lannister and Cersei, who had amazing episodes with their contribution, with their role, with their acting. And in the last bit, right when you think that they were going to have this amazing end, they were killed by falling bricks. Which means when recession comes, if you are not able to stand your ground, then you'll be shown the door. And you have to understand Jon Snow in all of this, right? Jon Snow has a lot to say to us. Jon Snow is like that guy in a company who works very, very hard and always goes back home thinking that I have so much contribution to the company and the company has to promote me, has to move me up the ladder because they should see what I'm doing. Well, they didn't. They showed you the door. They actually showed you a jungle which was very cold and gave you a few kids and a few horses, and you just walked into the abyss, which sounds like a guy after a long journey of hard work in a company being showed the door for no apparent reason. You have to learn from these things. You have to understand that your contribution, your role is something that is decided by someone else, not by you. So if Game of Thrones needs to be understood, it needs to be understood that You are who you are as long as other people accept who you are. So unfortunately, thousands and thousands of fans do not accept the fact that this final 2 episodes match up with anything called Game of Thrones. So if your life in a company needs to sustain, make sure that your life in that company matters and has a difference that everybody else can recognize, not just you. Okay, let me know what you think of my analysis.